I see I've got 2 viewers. Good evening. You want to talk about I'm down 1. StreamYard lags behind YouTube a bit on things. All right. Give me 1 second. So I came across this YouTube channel earlier today, and it's by a very progressive chick, and I started watching some of her videos. And this one, I listened to about half of it and then decided that I'd rather just analyze it here. It is good fodder to kind of explain some of the problems with socialism from my perspective. So let's jump in. The channel is called where'd it go?
It's not really
All right, the channel's called Anarchistara. And before I get started, she has all the perfectly opposite beliefs as I do. We don't see eye to eye at all on anything, as far as I can tell. One thing, though, that I do appreciate, I guess, about this channel is that she seems sincere. A lot of the super progressive woke nut jobs I encounter are super hostile, just straight out the gate, and I don't get that vibe here. So, Anarchista, if you watch this and I seem hostile, I'm not. Don't take it wrong. I'm just passionate.
So today I want to take a look at another masterpiece of deception from Prager University. This video is entitled Capitalism or Socialism, Which One is More Democratic?
I'm going to jump this little part. We're just going to talk shit on Dinesh D'Souza.
Well, the thing is I don't happen to believe that socialism is as popular as he's putting out there. I think that with the pandemic and with a lack of stimulus checks, I think socialist perspectives and ideas are starting to be talked about a little bit more, which is good from my perspective, even through me being an anarchist. I think the further left that we go, the better off we are. And it's easier to move a socialist into anarchy than it is to deal with a lot of other political perspectives out there. So that said, I don't know what he's doing there besides trying to appeal to a fear of a certain audience that socialism is on the rise and to try to get that kind of immediate reaction out of people.
Less than 10 years ago, you couldn't refer to socialism in a positive way and hope to have a career in American politics. Socialism was referred to as the S word. Now it is affirmed either explicitly or implicitly by just about everyone on the left.
That's not true, but I wish it was.
Given socialism's record of failure, the socialists seem to be gaining ground.
Can we take a minute to appreciate how bad the infographics from Prager University are? You have this thing where they're trying to talk about capitalism versus socialism, yet you've got this grade for socialism as an F, with no basis in reality or no factors to take into account to apply that grade to. Capitalism doesn't have a grade, and we have.
They're just filling space. They're just filling space.
Is more democratic and therefore more moral than capitalism.
True, and certainly no sources to back it up.
Why? What makes socialism so attractive to so many? Socialism, according to its proponents, is more democratic and therefore more moral than capitalism.
True.
Leftist filmmaker Michael Moore explains it for us. Democratic socialism means everyone has a seat at the table and everybody gets a slice of the pie.
I find it a little odd that Michael Moore is the person that they're using to represent socialism. I feel like we could do a lot better than that, as especially a first representation. But sure, essentially what Moore's saying here is true. So I guess I'll go with that.
The famed socialist writer Irving Howe wrote something similar in his 1982 autobiography. We believe that the democracy in our political life should also be extended deeply into economic life.
True.
The basic idea here
Very
is that
good.
socialism is vindicated through its roots in popular consent. If a majority of people working through their elected representatives declare something to be a public entitlement, say free college or free healthcare, then they are justified in extracting resources from those who create wealth to pay for it.
So there was a lot wrong there, and I think it all needs to be addressed. First of all, under socialism, you would not have the kind of wealth that is being talked about here. So I'm going to start with that and then kind of work backwards. You'd have a situation where all of the workers would be working in a place and would have some sort of democratic control over their business. So instead of being a boss authoritarianly, using authoritarian power to dictate policy, you would have workers democratically choosing policy, and workers would be able to control their wages and would be able to extract a proper amount of value from what they put into their labor. So when you have these types of situations where a society would need something like...
Okay, I'm going to go through this slowly. I got to back it up a little bit, or I'll lose track of the places I want to point things out.
Base, and would have some sort of democratic control over... There was a lot wrong there, and I think it all needs to be addressed. First of all, under socialism, you would not have the kind of wealth that is being talked about here. So I'm going to start with...
All right. That's one of the first major flaws of socialism and the entire sort of left ideology is the locus of power. Why wouldn't you be able to have that sort of wealth? It doesn't necessarily mean that it's not, life isn't a zero-sum game. Free market economics is everybody's pie grows. That's the idea. So, but regardless of whether you believe the economy is a zero-sum game or not, the whole mindset of there should be no winners is wrong. Why wouldn't you just go make yourself a winner? I mean, you gotta give yourself back in your own mind the power seat, or else you're always going to be barking up someone else's tree, asking for the things you need.
With that, and then kind of work backwards. You'd have a situation where all of the workers would be working in a place and would have some sort of democratic control over their business. So
the major flaw I see with socialism is logistical. First of all, we should clarify this up front, I guess. Socialism, as she's about to describe it, is conceptual socialism. Socialism, as conservatives typically describe it, is tangible socialism, the stuff around us. It's not theoretical. It's how socialist Marxist policies actually are being or are proposed to be enacted in the world around us. But she's going to respond in an academic conceptual socialism context. So I will respond there.
So instead of being a boss using authoritarian power to dictate policy, you would have workers democratically choosing policy, and workers would be able to control their wages and would be able to extract a proper amount of value from what they put into their labor. So
first of all, we've got some obvious logistical problems here. How do you come to a consensus about what a proper amount of value is universally? And I mean, I think this holds true for everybody, myself included. People think they're worth more than they are. And even after that perspective delusion is over, even once that amount's accounted for, I'd say almost everybody is still going to then ask for more than they think they deserve. Right? Why not? If it's the whole pool's, if it's everybody's money, and it's just as much my money, and I get to tell you what I'm worth, fuck yeah. Yeah, I need some more. He's gonna ask for some more. You see, instantly, if you put yourself in this situation, you're in your head, and just work your way through implementing this in real life, it instantly starts to fall apart. Nobody's going to agree on what they're worth. To have a democratic company instead of a hierarchical one is what you give up. What you gain with hierarchy is efficiency. It's way easier for one person to call the shots quickly than it is for everybody to get on the same page. If you've ever walked into a movie theater with more than one other person and tried to figure out which movie to watch there on the spot, you already know what I'm talking about. Trying to get a family of 4 or 5 or whatever to agree on where we're going to go to eat or what movie we're going to see, it's fucking impossible. So imagine doing that on a much larger scale with people who aren't even your nuclear family. I mean, you're never going to get there. You're never going to come to a conclusion on anything, on what sort of hand sanitizer to get.
When you have these types of situations where a society would get something like public health care or public education, you'd be able to extract the resources as a taxation of a much larger group of people, and it would represent all of those democratic workers being able to put money into a tax pool that would allow for them to come together and make these public rights available. He used the word entitlement, which is, of course, a conservative buzzword to attack and criticize anything that is being offered that the left might consider a right. Another issue that's being
on rights versus entitlements. How do I hold on? Let me think about how to articulate this. A right. If somebody violates your rights, they're proactively violating something critical in a way that you can't respond to. I still articulated that poorly, but for example, if I'm living on my farm with my family and we grow our own food and we're totally self-sustaining our little family farm, and you come in and haul off my wife or reroute my little river, you've just come and fucked up my shit. You've just imposed on me. You've just harmed me in a way that wasn't reciprocal. I mean, it's not a mutual transaction, and it's something critical, and presumably it's in a way that I can't reasonably defend myself from. Otherwise, I mean, a 10-year-old girl can't violate my rights. She just can't. She can't take any of them away. That's what a right is ideally. What a right really is what a government or whatever power, whatever authority really is in place. It's whatever they allow you to have. You can scream and bitch all day about your right to this or your right to that, but it doesn't manifest. A right's kind of a useless concept. What you don't have a right to, and I think everybody could agree to this, is you don't have a right to somebody else's labor. So to say that healthcare is a right then obligates the doctors and nurses to work for free, or it obligates somebody else to pay for you, which then just drags us down all the way into socialism or communism. So yeah, the whole this is a right, that's a right argument. It's played out, and it's a claim that doesn't work logically until you basically redistribute everything completely democratically. It is our right to not be offended by others, is it? I think the left would like to make such laws to control language. It is for sure not your right to not be offended by others. And here's why: because you're taking offense to something is out of anyone else's control. That's impossible to provide to somebody, even if you wanted to. Words change meaning. Just people get offended by all sorts of things. Who would have thunk a year ago that people would be offended if you don't wear a medical mask in public? Yeah, you don't have the right to not get offended. And also, being offended, like, who gives a fuck? I don't know why that has any power anyways, or anybody thinks that has any significance. Like, I'm offended. Okay. It's a fucking personal problem. I don't know what to tell you. Just because you feel some sort of way about it doesn't change anything. Let's continue.
Conflated here is the idea that in a socialist economy or socialist government, that you'd have a situation where we'd still have Republican ideals of elected representatives. Basically, he's arguing that people vote for their representatives who would then try to steal the wealth. The fact is, we probably have to move towards some form of direct democracy in this situation. So everything here is basically a straw man and designed to attack the current system and try to defend the wealthy people from being taxed in order to provide rights and value to the rest of society. This is not criticizing socialism, it's criticizing taxation.
Okay, well, taxation in the real world, outside of academia, the conceptual discussion of what the different isms are, in the real world, socialism manifests as taxation. First, then it manifests as complete control. But let me back up here.
Current system and try to defend the wealthy people from being taxed in order to provide rights and value to the rest of society.
Again, we've got the whole wrong mindset that makes wealthy people evil, which I do think today's ultra wealthy are basically all evil, but not because they're wealthy. For like Bezos and Zuckerberg. Anyways, there's nothing wrong with being wealthy. You shouldn't try to not have wealthy people. You should try to have all wealthy people. So, just the whole attitude of the socialist approach is destructive. It's destructive of wealth. It's destructive of rights. It's destructive of value, service. It's just destructive. Change your attitude. Instead of trying to take shit from other people, try to provide shit to people. If you just change that core attitude, I think it would ripple through a lot of things.
This is not criticizing socialism, it's criticizing taxation.
As Nathan Robinson argues in his book, Why You Should Be a Socialist, the moral imperative is to place the economy under the control of the people.
Sure.
Sounds good, at least superficially, until you dig a bit below the surface.
And here's where we twist, right?
What direct control do the people really have over any government institution?
So as an anarchist, this is something that I actually do ask, and it is a valid question, but he's using it in a very manipulative way. The truth is that the people very rarely, especially in a representative democracy like in the United States, they rarely do have any government control. You can theoretically vote for certain representatives, and oftentimes you're voting against the other party rather than for your particular person. This could be fixed with certain systems like ranked voting, but the only real change that one can make is by primarying your candidate or putting forward certain candidates on a local level that can actually make effective change. Generally speaking, we don't have as much of a voice in a representative democracy. I also would argue that under forms of socialism, there would still be that draw for power to, self-contain itself, and with the ability to use state violence against people, you create a situation where you end up kind of extracting the resources into a very small system, and you'd end up repeating the process. Again, that's me as an anarchist. But I also do believe that socialism is a much better position to be in than where we're currently at in the United States. So we need to kind of move in that direction.
Okay, it's not used manipulatively. It is what he's doing is he's addressing the very real logistical problems of socialism, and it's a valid criticism. I like anarchy better than I like socialism, which may be why I find this chick's channel tolerable. I can tolerate it, even though I completely disagree with it.
So, great question, but it's about to be used manipulatively, I'm sure.
What control do the British people have over the National Health Service? What control do Americans have over the Department of Motor Vehicles or the U.S. Post Office? Yeah.
So here, this is what I mean that he's using it manipulatively. So the National Health Service in Britain, I can't really speak on because I don't have a lot of knowledge about how that particular system works. But I can say that their healthcare system is probably better than the U.S. from what I have heard, and more people have access to healthcare. The DMV, if it exists in your state, is generally speaking a state institution and isn't tied to the federal government. So it really doesn't have the kind of same leverage. But at the end of the day, I don't understand what he's getting at with the DMV.
You should understand what he's getting at. I mean, the fact that it's a state entity and not a federal entity, who cares? That doesn't matter to the point that he's making, which is you don't have any control over these government services.
And the post office is already a private institution that just happens to be government funded.
Again, doesn't
these
matter.
Are very bizarre examples to try to attack and criticize things that some people have complained about and have issues with. Like, if the post office doesn't deliver your package on time, they get angry. Then the DMV, generally speaking, is a very hard experience for people. So he's calling these out and conflating them with what socialism is. And this is not an accurate representation of socialism.
Will you turn off the heater? It just kicked on and I'm live streaming. Thank you. I hate that fucking thing. What's going on, Andrew Ray? Yeah, I'm going through this video that I found on a progressive person's website. It's about capitalism versus socialism, and I started watching it earlier. It seemed like a good springboard to kind of discuss some of the issues with socialism, and so I'm just watching it and responding.
Though I would argue that under socialism, both the DMV and the post office should be represented by the workers having democratic control of the institution and being able to explicitly state what the policies are and being able to make an equal share of the profits off of what the DMV might make as a state institution.
Answer, of course, is none. Given its practical impossibility, genuine popular control over government institutions is a mirage. Second,
general popular control over government decision-making is not this thing that can just be pushed aside as being impossible. There are ways to make it happen.
How?
We do live in a representative democracy, so that doesn't happen in the United States. But that doesn't mean it's impossible to create or design, especially with using technology and other factors. You could definitely create a system that's a lot more democratic.
What if 51% of Americans?
You could make it more democratic, and I think that there is an argument there that we the people do not have nearly enough control over the government. I would agree with that completely. That's why I'm opposed to socialism. That's why I want less government involvement. And to say that socialism is controlled by the people, I mean, really, it sort of becomes a government function, because who enforces the economy's execution by these rules? Well, it'd have to be a government. But about our, like I said, I agree that there's that we could have more control over our government than we do now. We need more. I agree with that. The thing is, this problem illustrates why socialism doesn't work. A large part of why we don't have enough control is because we don't pay enough attention. Nobody pays attention to anything but the absolute headline politics. Certainly before 2020, nobody gave a fuck. When you go to vote for president, do you know who any of the other people on the ticket are? I mean, just people don't pay attention. Nobody goes to town hall meetings. Nobody goes and reads the minutes that like county commission meetings post online. So nobody's involved. So we have had these opportunities. We do have a lot more, especially locally. There are a lot of ways that people could be involved in politics, in this decision-making process, that they just don't do it. They just don't.
To confiscate the resources.
And I think she mentioned we can't write off popular democracy, especially with new technology. The problem is there are too many decisions to be made and not enough headspace for people. If everybody's got equal vote in all the policies and all the decisions and everything, that would be constant. That would need constant attention from everybody.
Of a single person, say Bill Gates. Does that make it right?
Again, what he's talking about here is taxation, not really any sort of active position in socialism. I highly doubt that the best opportunities for socialism and the best arguments would be to redistribute wealth, but to create a system where equality of opportunity is formed that would, over time, diminish how much wealth a single person had. But I honestly believe that
I mean, this system, I'm not going to walk all the way through it right now, but it's worth kind of wondering to yourself, what does that system look like? How would that work? What kind of system would do that? And how would we implement it? And I think that what you'll find, at least what I've found, is that there isn't a system that does that any better than free market capitalism. Free market, that's an important part, because we're not living in a free market capitalist economy right now, for sure.
if you had to steal wealth from someone like Bill Gates as much as he had and redistribute some of it, while he could still live a really, really good life and his kids can still live really, really good lives, I don't think that'd be the worst thing in the world. But this feels more like a perspective of attacking taxation than socialism. And he's kind of strawmanning that position to defend the wealthy and rich.
To set up a socialist system that does redistribute wealth, to force place that system against the will of people who are succeeding in a free market economy, even if it's not an explicit tax, even if it's just policies that end up sliding money from one person to another, like tariffs, or the individual mandate. That's still taxation, really. I mean, it has the same effect. It's just got a bit of a different mechanism. So you can't implement an economy that produces equal outcomes without coercing or forcing people who are succeeding in the current economy to enter into a new arrangement against their will.
For an authoritarian socialist government, a single dictator seizes the fruits of your labor. Everyone is against that. Under democratic socialism, a majority does. The end result is the same. You've been robbed.
Who's this you that he's talking to? Who's been robbed?
Anybody at any moment who the group decides to rob.
Because the majority of people who would be taxed effectively under a proto-socialist form of government in the initial stages would not be the general people, it would be the wealthy. So he's really speaking to the wealthy, and this is just further entrenching the fact that he is talking about taxation right now. He's not interested in socialism or anything. He's interested in maintaining power structures of wealth.
Again, why are the wealthy deserving of this? What about the wealthy makes them lose their rights, or deserve to be stolen from? I'm not wealthy. I'm not making a Prager U video. And I sure as shit don't want to live in a world where a glob of people can just arbitrarily decide that, you know what, we want some of your shit. We don't like what you're doing. You do this over here. No, get out of my life. Get out of everybody's life. Stop hating on people who succeed because you haven't succeeded. Change your attitude around and make yourself a success.
The fundamental problem with democratic socialism, however,
Under democratic socialism, you wouldn't be able to make yourself a success. Nobody would. Being a success is not an option. Being it, you can only hit so far. It's the middle.
is it a
What a dismal sort of headspace to be in. To know that there's, you're doing average and there's nothing else for you now.
assumption that in a free market system, the economy is not under the control of the people?
It's
It's
not.
exactly the opposite of how things work. Let me explain. Each of
Hold on. Let me look at some of these comments. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't know that I've thought out what the right solution is enough to think that I know, or to know how it would be best implemented. But I do agree that these career politicians, I mean, it's just, Joe Biden's been a politician his whole fucking life. And to run a campaign for Senate is hugely expensive. You have backers. It's a full-time job. It's hugely expensive. I mean, yeah, I don't know how to untangle the ball of wax so that we don't have these lifelong corporate sponsored career politicians like we do. Term limits would probably be a good one. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's really to me, it appears to be the case that people who like Marxist ideologies especially the more extreme ones, are people who aren't having. I mean, they're obviously never the people who are having a lot of success at life, unless they're the ones who are having way too much success at life, and then they're trying to leverage socialism into a dictatorship, like Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, the wealth redistribution that's happened during these shutdowns, how all the small businesses are getting pushed out, and the entire consumer market is now owned by Walmart, by Amazon, Facebook. All these mega corporations are making fuckloads of profit, and they're just decimating the middle class. They like socialism. Facebook likes socialism. The global elites at the UN or the World Economic Forum like socialism because they plan to control that. They don't plan to pay into that. I think it has been for a long time. And I think that's what a lot of people are kind of realizing lately is that the education system, college, and pop culture has been very much indoctrinating people into thinking socialism is good. I don't think that's an accident at all. I think it's absolutely intentional. And I know I'm 34. I was surprised as fuck like a year ago to realize how absolutely socialist like younger people are and how they're being brought up and how that appears to be not accidental and like the teachers know what they're doing. Seemed insidious as fuck to me. Book face guy. Carry on.
Each of us are not only citizens, we are also consumers. These are overlapping categories. Every citizen is a consumer, and every consumer is also a citizen.
If every citizen is a consumer, and every consumer is a citizen, why does the Venn diagram currently show them as two separate entities and not just one circle? Again,
because they're not a citizen and a consumer are not the same thing. She keeps getting lost in the little graphics. They're not data representations. It's just art. It's just graphics. Don't read too much into this. But yeah, you as a consumer and you as a citizen, it's not the same role.
Prager University with its great infographics that make no sense. If citizens and consumers are both one-to-one, as he's describing, this should just be one circle.
Get back on the point.
But I feel like that's going to violate whatever's supposed to be in the middle here.
A consumer, like the citizen, is a voter. As citizens, we vote once every 2 or 4 years. As consumers, we vote many times a day.
So here we go with the argument that somebody is able to vote with their dollar. The problem, of course, being that when one attempts to vote with their dollar, you are only able to vote as much as you have acquired wealth. So you're essentially prioritizing the wealthy position of voting with your money versus someone who's poorer off who can't necessarily do that. And it doesn't call into question the inequality that's inherent within capitalism and the system. And it's making it look like everyone has an equal voice when really they don't. Bill Gates, with his billions and billions of dollars, for example, since he brought Bill Gates up, has a much larger vote than someone who is, struggling to make ends meet. Therefore, it's not really democracy, but another form of that representation of authoritarianism, and is actually a good argument for socialism, because under socialism, you might have a greater idea of being able to vote with your dollars as more people have an equal opportunity across the board. You might actually create a situation where wealth inequality is actually diminished. So his argument's actually supporting socialism right now.
Citizen.
The reason that voting with your dollar works so well, actually, is because it's not a conscious decision. It's an automatic one. When you vote with your dollar, you're not analyzing and weighing the way you would, say, a political candidate or a policy. It doesn't tax your attention that way. You just vote for whatever's working the best. You stop at Quick Trip because it's the best gas station. You buy, Mellow Yellow because it's your favorite pop. Eventually, the way the invisible hand of the economy works is everybody ends up representing themselves automatically, and the things that work the best rise to the top. But they work the best naturally and automatically. It works the best without you trying to think and trying to logic your way through what you think should work out the best. It just so happens that whatever's most efficient, whatever's the best product, whatever's the best service, whatever works the best gets voted for the most.
Votes with a ballot, which costs him nothing except the inconvenience of going to the polls. The consumer votes with his money, which costs him a lot, all the time and effort he put in to earn that money. Only a fraction of citizens are eligible to vote at the ballot box, but every consumer votes in the marketplace, even felons, even children.
Even felons and children are able to vote with their dollars, except felons can't get jobs. Children often don't make their own money. They're working with their parents' money. So no, there's not really that much of an issue to...
Well, I'm a felon, and I've been able to get jobs. And not getting paid as much as before I was a felon, but still. And yeah, kids under capitalism vote with their parents' money. I hope that would be the same way under socialism. I hope they wouldn't be working and voting with their own money.
Talk about here. He's just using the situation to make it look like socialism bad and, capitalism good. But the truth also is when he said, what was it?
Every consumer votes in the
I just want to go back to the
time and effort.
All the time and effort, right? When he's talking about this perspective, all the time and effort that's put in. The fact is that the people who do the most work and put in the most energy and put in the most time are not necessarily the people who make the most money back. Landlords tend to do very little and make a lot of money. So again, it's this appeal to, speaking to the wealth and rich and the mythology of American capitalism. And again, these arguments, if you really want to be making them, should actually adhere to a socialist perspective, not a capitalist one.
Landlords are a really hot target of the left right now, and it drives me nuts because they don't work as much. I mean, they're not over here, working on the house every day, but they do invest a huge amount of their own capital into the rental property. So my landlord, I assume, bought this house with a bank loan. When I pay him each month, he's not doing the amount of work that I'm paying him for. But what he is doing is he's taking on the debt, the obligation, and the risk, cash equivalent. He has to pay however much this cost. He has to pay the loan to the bank. If he doesn't get that money from my rental income, he's getting it from whatever his day job is, So I don't like the way they're going after landlords. I think that being a landlord is actually one of the best ways we have available to us for people to move themselves out of the hourly employee worker class or lifestyle and into a capital owning sort of self-employed business owner. It doesn't take that much to buy a fixer-upper and then start renting it out. Most of the people I know who have done it end up not doing it again, because being a landlord is actually way more of a pain in the ass and way more work than people give it credit for, because you got to spend a whole bunch of time dealing with bad tenants, and trust me, we all know that there are bad tenants. Bad tenants are chasing rent around. You don't get paid. You got damages to deal with. Katie, my girlfriend, worked for our last landlord for a while, and they had a triple murder in one of the houses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you got to go in and clean up people's brains off the wall.
People just tear stuff up.
People tear stuff up. It's a lot of work on top of the risk. But again, it is one of the accessible ways that a common, regular working person can elevate themselves to owning capital that generates return for them. So maybe eventually you get to the point, if you are a winner, where you don't have to work every day doing something you hate. I think that's what everyone should aspire to. And that's a great way to do it, because it's not like you can't start a sneaker company. Like, oh, you know what? I want to make shoes. Nike shoes aren't as good as the shoes that I can make. Really? You're going to enter the shoe market? You're going to start making new soft drinks, or go into farming? It's impossible to start a farm with how much land costs, how much equipment costs. Forget it. There are no new farmers. There haven't been new farmers for decades. But owning real estate, owning residential real estate, being a landlord, that's still accessible to people.
He put in to earn that consumer vote for political candidates, but they too vote with their money. Moreover, citizens participate in a system of...
Hold on, let me see a couple comments real quick. See, I know she hits all of the leftist problems just squarely on the head, but she still does it in a less hostile way than they typically do. Which I don't know why. I mean, we've had government issued housing, and I mean, the projects, people write songs about the projects for a reason. It's never like, ooh, this is great housing. I'm glad you're not woke, tard. I'm sorry that your generation is woke. I feel like everybody, like my age exactly, was basically the tipping point where we just fell off into total woke tard land. And my people are half woke tard too. We know. Well, fuck yeah.
Representative democracy. Their views are filtered through the politicians who represent them. Consumers, by contrast, vote in a system of direct democracy. If you prefer an Audi to a Lexus, or the Apple iPhone to the Samsung Galaxy...
Because those are choices we all make every day, and they're the most important choices in our lives. Not the day-to-day goings-ons of laws and needs, or how a business functions and the ethics of that, and whether or not a river being polluted is a good idea or not in order to make a company money, or the needs of society based on a much larger scope.
I gotta back her up.
Consumer vote for political candidates, but they too vote with their money. Moreover, citizens participate in a system of representative democracy. Their views are filtered through the politicians who represent them. Consumers, by contrast, vote in a system of direct democracy. If you prefer an Audi to a Lexus, or the Apple iPhone to the Samsung Galaxy...
Because those are choices we all make every day, and they're the most important choices in our lives. Not the day-to-day goings-ons of laws and, needs.
But never exactly. This is exactly what I was saying earlier. We make these choices every day. We are voting on certain things. We're voting on what works the best. If you care enough about the environmental behavior or the social the social conscientiousness of the company, then Google that shit and pay attention and stop spending money at places that you don't like their politics. I am not shopping at Amazon. And I requested over Christmas that nobody buy me shit off Amazon. Of course, they still did. But yeah, I do this all the time. Make socially driven purchases. I canceled my Netflix subscription for social reasons. I am not shopping at Amazon for social reasons. I mean, I do it all the time. You can do it. You just have to give enough fucks to pay attention.
Or how a business functions and the ethics of that, and whether or not a river being polluted is a good idea or not in order to make a company money, or the needs of a society based on a much larger scope. No, we're talking about whether or not, you get an actual choice between an Audi and a Lexus. How many of you are actually making that decision on a day-to-day basis right now?
Not many, but I can tell you that if one of those companies supported or did things that I didn't like, I would not shop it. It's exactly what I'm saying. This is something that can work now if you give enough fucks to do it. But people don't give enough fucks to do it. I mean, obviously she doesn't. So she wants what? Mandated attention giving? Like, you have to pay attention to this and make decisions based off it? This voting with the dollar works so much better. You make decisions based off what is important to you. If it's not important to you what rivers they pollute, then you don't vote along that axis. That doesn't come into play at all. If it is important to you, if it's more important to you than the product, then you vote along that axis first. You vote according to whatever metric is most important to you. And the fact that she doesn't know that sort of tells me I don't know how else to interpret that, except it's not important enough to her to voluntarily invest her time and energy into. But I do, and I suggest everyone does. And I would encourage everybody to join me in not spending any money at Amazon and as little at Walmart as you can.
Especially with the way things are going in this economy. Not many, right? Like, this is speaking to a very specific privileged class of people who has lost touch with the rest of reality. And the idea that he's comparing a representative democracy versus the direct democracy of buying with your dollars, again, speaks to what I said before. Under socialism, you would want to move from a representative democracy probably to a more direct form of democracy. And even if you kept that representative democracy, it would still influence the situation a lot more by having democracy within the workplace, thus equalizing pay a little bit more across the board, which would make his argument about this perspective on buying things much more egalitarian.
She lost me.
Rather than the very authoritative. Under socialism, you would want to move from a representative democracy probably to a more direct form of democracy. And even if you kept that representative democracy, it would still influence the situation a lot more by having democracy within the workplace, thus equalizing pay a little bit more across the board, which would make his argument about this perspective on buying things much more egalitarian, rather than the very authoritarian position where people in a wealthy place can buy more than somebody who is poorer off. Most Americans are not choosing between an Audi and a Lexus right now. Most Americans are choosing between medication, food, and rent. And that's not a choice anybody should have to be in.
Right. But the way that we got there is by voting, again, according to our priorities, what's important to us at the moment. For a long time, we've been prioritizing cheap shit and convenience. Cheap and convenient. And we haven't given a fuck about anything else. It's kind of our own collective multi-generational fucking negligence that's gotten us here. But that's how we were voting. We were being negligent voters economically. We bought all the cheap shit from China. We bought it all at Walmart because it was cheaper. We all voted on Walmart over and over and over and over again. And now we're like, oh, fuck. We overvoted Walmart. We overvoted China. We overvoted Amazon. Well, yeah. I mean, we did. We have a problem. But we voted ourselves there.
You don't have to elect some other guy to exercise these preferences. You do it directly yourself by paying for them.
It's all the illusion of choice.
Secret of how those billionaires like Jeff Bezos got so rich. We made them rich. Inequality.
Also, I don't know. It probably doesn't matter, but I don't think that we made Jeff Bezos. I don't think that Amazon magically went from a money-losing internet book company to the biggest fucking megalithic corporation in the world without like signing on with the CIA, you know? Get involved in that new world order agenda. This is crony capitalism. Crony capitalism is what happens when you have well, I mean, for us, it's what happened as a result of too much democracy. If you weren't paying attention to things, thinking short term, voting on the wrong people over and over again, letting them concentrate wealth. We helped them. And we got ourselves to the point where you got entities like the CIA that fund things like Bezos, or I really don't believe any of the anybody who's massive tech conglomerate. They started out of their basement and then 20, 30 years later has grown to be one of the most powerful people on earth. I don't believe that story. That's not how the world works. You don't just have such a great magical invention in your parents' basement that you become the most powerful person on earth. You have help. You're making deals. You're in on something. Facebook is a CIA company. I think all the big techs are, but whatever. That's a different topic for a different time.
Quality that socialists complain about is the result of popular mandate.
Whenever you hear the word mandate, they are appealing to a type of position and perspective that states that somebody deserves to be there. You know, you have divine rule, which was the mandate of heaven. You get these kind of perspectives in history where a mandate brings somebody in. So the argument essentially is that someone like Bezos or Bill Gates deserves to be in their position because they somehow worked harder than everybody else or did more or did something to earn it. But the fact of the matter is a lot of it is based on luck. Furthermore, this inequality is not simply because people voted with their dollars, but when you're given the choice simply between an Android phone and an iPhone, with no competition able to come in without it being crushed under the weight of these other two names, or you have a situation where 5 companies or 6 companies own entire industries, you're not really given the choice, but an illusion of choice. Because in order to secure a lot of these products, or to secure a way of life within the United States society, one must purchase certain products to thrive and survive. You know, you only get a choice, for example, between 1 or 2 internet providers in your area. You only get a choice between a handful of cell phone brands. You only get a choice between, certain vehicles. You only get a choice between certain things in every single facet of your life. And even if you're buying between multiple brands of, say, food, at the end of the day, it's still owned by small companies. This is an illusion of choice being presented as if you have actual choice. And the billionaires, by being able to buy up smaller companies and being able to buy out other sources, end up having an oligarchic control, basically a rich, wealthy class of people controlling the majority of what exists. And therefore, it is not really your choice to do that, but rather a position where all of these products, which are necessities of life, must be maintained and centralized in the hands of a small few group of people, right? So it's not just because they made the best product. It's because we have no choice.
I absolutely agree. The illusion of choice is exactly that. It is a huge fucking problem. And Yeah. We don't really. I mean, look at our government. Look what's going on. Our government's been driving towards a particular agenda for decades. Both parties together. They've all been bought. And the choice when we voted was an illusion. I'm not going to try to get bogged down in politics, but I believe that Trump's the outlier, as well as Bernie would have been, which is why they're so despised by the establishment. But yeah, the illusion of choice is very real. It's crony capitalism, though. And when you talk about how to address this problem, it's also just deceptive capitalism. I mean, again, back to the tech industry, I'm very much of the belief that most of our technology was developed not in some dumb kid's basement, but by DARPA and the Pentagon and a lot of these defense programs. I think that the internet and all of our technology is basically military developed technology that they commercialized, and it was developed with our taxpayer money. Then it was sold back to us through private entities. It's not a surprise that there's, two cell phone companies, basically, 2 service providers. There's 6 media companies in the whole world, basically. Well, in America. What we got there through government abusing its resources it was entrusted with. Now, how do we get out of it? You could say socialism, and it works conceptually because you say socialism, everybody's equal, everybody has an equal vote, nobody is in a position where they can exploit the system. But that's not a thing in real life. There's just no way to make that realizable, for all the reasons I've gone into earlier and more. I haven't even touched really on just pure greed, corruption, the competitive and progressive and expansive nature of just the human being as an organism, or nature as an organism. Competition, survival of the fittest, winners and losers. These aren't social constructs. These aren't human developments. These aren't things that were born from an economic model. This is like foundational to life. And so to think that we could set up a system where it's like, okay, you know what? We're all going to be equal, and we're all going to be good and altruistic starting now. That would never work. We'd have to be a different species for it to work. It's not in human nature. It's not in the nature of anything, of any biological organism I can think of. I can't think of a single one that's not competitive.
Want fewer billionaires? Stop buying their stuff.
I did.
That sounds so simple, but they own it.
Greed or exploitation.
Yes, it
by
does.
satisfying our wants.
Well, it's not super simple, and it's not going to work overnight. But when the solution is something like socialism, we want socialism or anarchism. Okay. How do we get there? Should we vote on it? Should we use our democracy to abolish our democracy? And then what if the powers that be, the ones who control the resources, don't want us to do it? I mean, if you can't find an alternative to your Samsung cell phone, how the fuck do you think that you're going to make the whole economy restart? They're not going to agree. They have the resources. Basically, what you're doing is you're appealing to the current power to give up its power. You know what? You're winning at this game. We're going to restart everything so that you can't win anymore. Well, if you had the ability to get them to do that, you'd already be exercising it. You don't. What happens is here's the thing, and here's why communism, socialism, Marxism, it's such an insidious lie. It's absolutely a tool of the rich, of the elite, and not of the people. It's been sold as for the people. It's anything but. What socialism or communism, what Marxist ideologies do particularly well is destroy existing power structures. If you think about the Bolshevik Revolution or the French Revolution, it gets a society to destroy itself, and then it centralizes that wealth. It's really good at centralizing wealth. To get centralized wealth, first you have to get past the obstacles, which are the existing rich people. The existing rich people in society are the obstacles to collapsing that whole society's wealth distribution system. So if I'm, say, I don't know, a Jesuit priest or part of the Illuminati, and I want to fuck up and I want global power, well, I've got to start collapsing countries. I'm in the Illuminati. I'm hiding in the shadows, fucking kids, and worshiping Satan. I can't go and fight all these wars myself. What do I do? Well, I convince the useless idiots to collapse their country for me, their own society, their own economy and government, and be there to pick up the pieces, be ready to restart at 4 with them. Yeah. Marxism is a fantastic way to consolidate resources quickly. And that's what it's used for insidiously across the globe. It never works out well for the common people. I mean, we know that. That's the obnoxious thing about the communism and socialism versus capitalism discussion is that, at least here in America, the Marxist kids act like we don't like Marxist systems because it's been turned into a boogeyman and it can work so much better, but you've all been brainwashed to think communism bad. No, it's not brainwashed. It's well documented. It's happening right now. You can look at China right now. If you think that there's a socialist country working now, or that has worked historically, I'd like to hear about it. And if you say if you name one of the Scandinavian or small European countries, I don't know, leave a comment and I'll just give you a podcast episode to listen to so that you understand how those economies work and that you're wrong.
And the most successful
And cornering markets so we have no other choice.
entrepreneurs are those who anticipate our wants even before we have them. No one wrote Steve Jobs asking him to make a phone that took pictures, allowed people to text messages, and listen to music. He conceived it and built it before we knew we couldn't live without it.
The funniest part about that to me is that most of the technology.
He didn't really, but still. For the sake of discussion, we can assume he does, and the point holds. Capitalism is better than Marxism because it allows for these things to happen. In reality, we're not living in a capitalist and certainly not a free market economy right now. So to think that what's happening now is a failure of free market capitalism is it's a mistake.
Technologies that make up an iPhone were not created by Jobs, first of all. And it wasn't even created all by Apple. A lot of it has a rich history of coming from a lot of different sources and places. That's first and foremost. Second of all, Jobs was against, from what I understand, the idea of the internet being on an iPhone. He just wanted an iPod that was able to make phone calls. So no, Jobs isn't this like superior, greater man who came up with all these ideas himself. He actively was part of an organization that overrid him on a few things to make this great product. And first of all, I think iPhones are terrible compared to Android. That's my own perspective.
No, you're absolutely right. iPhones are garbage. Androids are better. Steve Jobs, nerd Jesus. I don't get the nerd fetish with Steve Jobs. I really don't. He's a fucking front man. He didn't do shit. And he's a weirdo. And just interesting side note, his HIV positive test report is on Wikipedia. I'm sorry, not Wikipedia, on WikiLeaks. So, think he died of cancer? I don't know, but he was HIV positive.
Especially a lot of the features they use to like close off their ability to interact with other devices.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, a lot of the technologies, including GPS and the internet, were developed through a lot of communal research and government research, and weren't even just the creation of Jobs himself. So this is just this disingenuous piece to try to make Jobs look like a hero, like he knew exactly what people wanted. At the end of the day, he's not looking.
So my computer just died, but I'm back. That's crazy. All right, let me pull this video back up. Moloch, Satan, it's all the same thing.
Genuine piece to try to make Jobs look like a hero, like he knew exactly what people wanted. At the end of the day, he got lucky, just like everybody else.
No.
Market economies involve a level of popular participation.
To succeed, Jobs, the specifics of Jobs aside, to succeed, you need some luck, but you can't succeed with luck alone. You absolutely need more than just good fortune. You got to do something with that luck. You got to do a lot with that luck.
And democratic consent that politics can only envy. We don't need to extend democracy from the political to the
bad luck. I'm sorry. Good luck will not create success, but bad luck will break success. That's what I was trying to say.
Economic sphere.
Yes, we do.
Already have it.
No, we don't.
Now what?
Grounding of free market.
But at the end of the day, a lot of the technologies, including GPS and the internet, were developed through a lot of communal research. What people wanted.
Patient and democratic.
But on that point, it was communally funded research, but it wasn't communally voted on research. There was no communal involvement in it at all, except for funding, and we didn't have a choice in that. We didn't decide to fund it. All this stuff is funded through Pentagon programs, black budget, DARPA shit. We get no say in it. We don't even know most of it exists until it's out. So it's certainly not an example of socialism working. It's an example of extortion or whatever.
Market economies involve a level of popular participation and democratic consent that politics can only envy. We don't need to extend democracy from the political to the economic sphere.
Yes, we do.
Already have it.
No, we don't.
And the moral grounding of free markets.
We don't have as much of it as we should, but we need to get it back. And no, politics is what fucked up capitalism. Coca-Cola can't force you to buy a Coke, but government can force you to buy its products and services. The government's the only thing that can use force or violence to force you to buy their services. You don't get a choice. I don't get a choice. Do you think I want to pay for the war on drugs? Think I wanted to pay to get my house raided? Fuck no. How do I stop buying this service? The authoritarianism comes in with government. Capitalism, a government can't use capitalism to oppress people. Capitalism can exploit the government. Since the government is the really dangerous cog in this wheel, it makes most sense to restrict it the most. Government is what'll fuck us up. If we let it, we need to restrict it. It's more dangerous. It needs more restrictions. What you don't do is go, you know what? That dog's way bigger and meaner than that dog over there. So I'm gonna go ahead and go walk on in this yard with the huge mean dog so I don't get bit. What the fuck? You don't solve this problem by giving more authority over every aspect of people's lives to government. You take it away. You restore individual freedom. Now, does individual freedoms create utopia? No, we've never figured out a system that will. There is no system humanity's been able to conceive that creates utopia. And thank God, because it sounds boring as fuck. But one obviously works better than the others. And it's capitalism because it's based on the concept of non-coercion. In a free market economy, you enter into the only transactions that occur are the ones that you want to. Both parties want to. I mean, I don't know how you can disrespect that or think that that's immoral to respect everyone's autonomy, even the little guy. And in theory, that's what government's supposed to do, is help protect, the little guy from having his free will imposed on by the big guy. We don't do that. And that's not an American problem. That's just a government problem. It's a human problem. But regardless, there's only one that is fundamentally respectful of people's ability or right to not be forced into an oppressed role. In socialism, in communism, you can't succeed too much. Depending on whether you're talking about the utopian la-di-da fairy tale sort of leftist wet dream of socialism where everybody goes to college and everybody has free housing and everybody has free healthcare and everybody gets abortions every day. Whether you're talking about that or whether you're talking about the gruesome reality of communist China where they control the population through forced abortions. And in China, the way that they work this is if a woman has to have a forced abortion because they're over the limit of kids, they'll just snatch her up and haul them off to an abortion clinic. Tons of them. Pick them up, haul them off. You get there, you're surrounded by other crying pregnant moms. They do the abortion and then leave the baby in a bucket with the mom on the bed, just right beside her. It's sadistic as fuck. It's disgusting. Yeah. Saw a little bit of a video about it. I think I watched like 6 seconds of that shit and then I closed my eyes.
Just like that of our political system is in the will of the people. In the latter case, a will expressed only on election day. In the former case, a will expressed deliberately, emphatically, constantly. We don't need socialism because we already have something more moral and more democratic. It's called capitalism. I'm Dinesh D'Souza for Prager University.
So with that, again, he reiterated the same points, and I'm just going to clarify and conclude on kind of criticizing that. And it is not democracy in capitalism. Anybody who recognizes the ability that someone with $1 million can vote much more with their money than someone who only has $100 can see that it's still an authoritarian system. What socialism is speaking to in this regard is that in a workplace, people will have some form of direct democracy, or at the very worst, a representative democracy, where they have more of a say and can make more money off of their share of labor. He's conflating this idea by trying to defend the wealthy and the people with status and their ability to control in an authoritarian way both the government and businesses without any regard for what people actually want or need. This type of democracy that he's describing is an illusion and is not really democracy. It's the illusion of choice, and it's the illusion of understanding that we, really don't have a voice if we have less money to vote for than another person. At least when you vote in a representative democracy, one vote represents one vote in theory, especially within your state. Certainly not in the electoral college system, which again is another thing that I think should be abolished and moved away from, so that one vote really does mean one vote and not one vote within your state. So D'Souza is being disingenuous here. PragerU is yet again using little tools of deceit in order to manipulate the situation to make it look like one thing is something else when it's not. And what he's really concerned with here is whether or not wealthy people are being taxed, and whether or not the wealthy people can continue to exist in the way that they are, manipulating and controlling people. And especially in this economy where people don't want to give stimulus checks, this perspective reeks of just a disconnect from the reality of most Americans. With that said, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and bell button.
So the problem is in the socialist solution, it ignores all the reasons why the idea isn't attainable. Just like, you know what? It'd be great if everybody just had $1 billion. That would be great. But that doesn't mean that we can make it, we can vote that into existence. You can't vote equality into existence. There is no system of utopian equality that we as humans have ever figured out how to do. But we can look at socialism and capitalism, and we can go, well, capitalism is free market capitalism, talking about not this fuck shit we got going on, at least is built on the principle of free will. You cannot be forced into an arrangement that you don't want to be in. Obviously, that's not what's happening now. We've got businesses closed down across the country that against their will. We've got huge spending bills. I mean, just everything is fucking. It's not working out. But to think that socialism is the answer to that ignores the fact that this ideal, this concept of, well, maybe we can all just get along equally. How would you possibly implement that? You can't. The only way to implement that, the only way to make people interact in an equal outcomes manner is to remove more of their existing rights. So you need to take away whatever autonomies, freedoms people have now. You need to take even more of that away and give it to a centralized authority over all that. You basically have to create a dictatorship to implement this problem, and to implement this solution of democracy, and then think of socialism, and then think that they'll just hand it off. We know that's not how it works. It's not how it's ever works. That's how you get dictators, because you know what? We're going to implement this new utopian society where everybody's equal. We're all comrades and blah, 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 blah. And then next thing you know, it's like, wait, these motherfuckers aren't redistributing things equally. No shit. No fucking shit. I'd also point out that she mentioned the stimulus checks right now. And regarding our current economic situation, where people aren't making money, we're printing dollars out the ass, we're sending fuckloads of money to Egypt and not giving anybody here stimulus worth of shit. the problem happened. It wasn't capitalism that caused that problem. It was basically the socialist. Well, it was the government. Once private capital, once our income taxes, our sales taxes, once the taxes that we paid got transferred to the government, that's when the problem started. Things worked. If things just stayed as a free market economy, if we couldn't be forced into transactions we didn't want, we wouldn't have this issue. People wouldn't be forced into poverty right now. And the government wouldn't be just blasting our money everywhere but here. The problem was we allowed ourselves to give up our own autonomy, our own rights. The leftovers would go, oh, my rights. Like it's a stupid thing to be concerned about losing. Yeah, we lost them. We gave them up. In theory, it should have been better, right? They told us it would be better. They told us that, you just give us some more tax money for this and that, and then we'll take care of all these problems. It's never enough. So capitalism, conceptually, free market capitalism, the principle of voluntary transactions and private ownership of property is absolutely the more moral, the more functional, and the only really viable option. If you believe anything else, you've been sold shit. If you think communism would work, I don't know. You spent too much time in class and drinking the Kool-Aid and not enough time like anywhere else. You just have to apply these principles to your day-to-day life, and you can understand very easily how socialism doesn't work. You can't figure out where your family can't figure out where to go for dinner. How the fuck do you think society is just going to start agreeing and syncing up on things? Look at us right now. You think this country or any group of people, I mean, look at any country. Nobody agrees on fuck all. It's delusional to think that we can just, manifest cooperation and agreement. Like, what fucking planet do these people live on? It's also delusional to think that the way to maximize people's rights is to implement systems that remove them. God damn it, she turned the fucking heater back on. Anyways, that about wraps me up. Anyways, I'll have some comments and then I'm going to go to bed. I'll start here. Apathy breeds mediocrity. Yep. One of the reasons why this country is going down the shitter. Yes, I agree. Also, let me know if that heater is just too obnoxious to stand. Also, the whole mindset that the left has, the locus of power is outside of them. To have the mindset that we need socialism, we need like fucktard Antifa running around and burning things down. Like, we need this to make things better. That whole system is based on the principle that you, the individual, are not capable by yourself. I mean, it removes the power altogether. To have this belief in socialism, you have to also have the inherent belief in another person or another entity's superiority to you. I mean, it doesn't work without that. If you truly believe yourself to be the center of power in your life, you'd be looking for ways to push yourself up instead of trying to find weirdo ways to drag other people down. So it's a very, and you know, obviously there are restrictions to realistically what people can accomplish, but that mindset in and of itself is destructive, and I think that a lot of people could do a lot better if the switch would just click on and go, oh my God, I got to take some of this power back I've given up. You know, like we do have to do certain things to live in this economy, but you can start weaning yourself off of things. Plant a fucking garden, you know, buy some chickens, whatever. I don't know. You know, there are certain things that if you live in a city, I mean, if you live in a city, you're kind of dependent on the system for food, but you can start weaning yourself off. It's not going to be as convenient. You can't get another cell phone. You can't just start your own. You can't grow your own cell phones, but you do have the ability to opt out. You, at any point, if you don't like this system, you don't have to participate in it. You can go fucking live in the woods naked. I mean, presumably, you're probably not allowed to, but who's going to catch you in some parts of the world? Two parties, really? One corporate party? Yeah. You got the corporate party and the globalist party, and it's all weird and corrupt. Is that Australia or Austria? I don't know about Austria, but Australia. Australia's having a hard time right now. We are. That is true. It takes time and it takes effort and it takes discomfort. Like, that's what people on the left and on the right too. The right's just as guilty as this is the left. Like, I'm a QAnon person, but a huge fucking issue that I have with the QAnon culture, and a lot of the I'm a Trumper too. Like, I'm all those things, but it drives me nuts the way these communities have such a tendency to think that Trump will fix all the problems. He might save your ass from being taken over by China, our ass. He might have saved our fucking asses, but it's still not going to things aren't just going to magically poof back. You're going to have to make conscious choices. I'm going to have to make conscious choices. You know, like I said, there are certain things I do and don't buy. I'm very conscious with where I spend my money right now. Insanely conscious. The less I can give to these mega corporations, the better. I go very much out of my way to spend every dollar I can, either with a small business if it's possible, or for sure, I will not buy a damn thing off Amazon. I won't support Amazon at all. And if I don't need something, I try not to buy it. We were at Best Buy earlier today. I promise you there's a shitload of things in Best Buy I would like to buy, could have afforded, would have bought under different political and economic and social circumstances. But the way it is I don't want to put my money into this massive technology retailer owns the whole brick and mortar retail market for electronics in America. And I don't want to buy a product made by an illusion of choice company. I don't want to give these fucks any more money. So I just am foregoing the stuff I want. I think that people need to understand that if we want to get ourselves out of this hole, we need to start doing shit like that. It's going to be a downgrade in living. Things aren't going to be as convenient or as cool. And you're going to have to do shit like learn how to grow fucking potatoes or something. I don't know, but the way our system is now, we got to start taking it back. Stop complying with stupid fucking mask mandates. You know they're bullshit. I know they're bullshit. We all know it's just part of the control system and it needs to stop. But nobody's going to give that up voluntarily, obviously. Governments aren't going to, and we knew this going into the lockdown. No government ever in the history of anything has ever taken authority because they needed it. Like, oh shit, your rights are off right now. We got an emergency. And then been like, whew, disaster averted. Good show, guys. Here are your rights back. It's not what happens. It's never happened in history. But what does happen is states of emergency happen. And that's how people lose their rights. If you look at Nazi Germany and the way the Nazis rose to power, it was very, very much like it was shockingly identical to how the Patriot Act got put into place. There's an emergency. It called for this and that, and then we passed this new legislation, blah, blah, blah. You know, obviously we haven't let ourselves get to the point that Nazi Germany did, but the steps that happened were identical. Yeah, I mean, that's what it has turned into a lot. That's not what it has to be inherently, I don't think, but the problem with parties at all is now you've got sort of conglomerates of power that have their own agenda, and they wield more influence over the politician elected by the people than the people do. The politician almost always, except for, like I said, you know, except for Donald Trump and maybe to a lesser extent Bernie, but every president of my lifetime has worked for the party, not for the people. And I think Trump's the first one to buck that system. I mean, if that's not a reason to support Trump in and of itself, the fact that he's the first candidate to buck this grip on power that the political parties have usurped from the American people, I mean, I don't know. That does it alone for me. Beholden to the coal industry. Yeah, energy is another huge thing that they've got a lock on. What do you mean subservient to the coal industry if you're here? How far behind am I on these things? I got to speed up. Yes, support the fuck out of independent media. It's a trap. It won't work out for you in the end. Do I support any element of socialism like public health, including Medicare, public school? Yeah, I do. I'm very libertarian. So I support things that are necessary, that are essential, basically, but are not, like, for instance, nuclear bombs or the military is a good example. If we as Americans support, we're a country, we support these values, this is how we choose to live as a country. But we live in a world that has nuclear weapons other superpowers that would love to disrupt and overtake us, our nice little American way to live. We got these these problems that need to be addressed. They need to be addressed in order for us to have our society the way that we want to. Well, I can't afford a nuclear bomb. You can't afford a nuclear bomb. But if I have a nuclear bomb, you don't have any incentive to buy one either. Like, you're covered by proxy. So there's a huge disincentive for individuals to contribute, as well as an impossibility for most people, and to try to leech off of somebody else's coverage. But nevertheless, it benefits all of society, and it's necessary and essential for all of society. I think that should be covered. I support infrastructure, the highway system. I don't like the way the federal government has used the highway system as basically a way to bribe or to coerce states into doing what they want, like changing the drinking age to 21 and shit like that. But I do think that infrastructure, military, something that benefits the whole and is essential for the whole. I mean, if the government didn't build roads, actually, there is an argument to be made that private entities would build roads. And there are some places where, anyways, but I'm not sure that I believe that. I certainly don't think we'd have the highway system we do now without government providing that. I do think that we're all much better off for it. So I would support that. But to think that something like the highway system is hugely beneficial to the overall functioning of the economy, logistics and transportation is a massive part of economic success. Your ability to move things from here to there is crucial to a functioning economy. But if I needed a road to Bobby's house from my house and there wasn't one, are me and Bobby going to build it? I mean, I don't, it's stupid to think that independently we could have created this the way it is now. What else do I support? I do support certain bare minimum sort of social safety nets. Kids, families. I do think people fall on hard times and they need a boost. They need help. What I don't think is that where you start to lose me real quick is when you have an individual's need being imposed on everybody. So that's your healthcare, that's your education. Yes, it is also, welfare for, a starving kid isn't my problem. But at some point, you got to have a little bit of compassion, especially for kids. And I don't think you'd find anybody who disagreed with that. I don't think you really find anybody. I don't know anybody on the right who would say, I don't support any sort of help at all for these people through the government. I do think that we've got that ours is structured in a way that is terrible. It doesn't help people on it get out of poverty. It just incentivizes more of it. It's not efficient even in its use. It's just very cumbersome. But I don't know where the line is on those things. I don't support public funding of college for sure. And that's part of the reason why your college degree ain't worth shit now, because there's a big push for everybody should get to go to college in the 90s. And then student loans became easy as fuck to get. And so now we're a nation of people who are completely in debt, in student loan debt, and we've all got degrees that ain't worth shit because everybody's got one of them. I mean, that's a pretty foreseeable consequence of that sort of shit. If it was taxpayer funded, well, I guess people wouldn't have the debt burden, but the tax burden would have been bigger up front. So you're still extracting that money from people from the individual people. You're still paying for school. The teachers are still getting paid. The textbooks still cost money. The buildings still need to be built. Somebody's still paying for that. The people are still paying for that. It is, how do you want to do it? Do you want to have debt on the back end individually as a student? Or should we just make everybody buy these kids' school a college degree together? I'd prefer it this way. I mean, I'd prefer let people take out debt and go to college if they want. It's not a good system, but it's better than forcing the whole population to pay for college for every kid to go to, so that now it's a useless thing. That's the reason college had any value in the first place. High school degrees were free. Everybody could get a high school diploma. To get a college degree, that was something special. That was a step above the rest. When it's not a step above the rest, it's got no value anymore. College, I'd argue, doesn't really have much value in the first place anyways. The stuff you learn there, you're not mostly using. It's like, I partied. I partied for 4 years. I hardly use any of the knowledge I learned at school. I do have an economics degree, and I do use what I use my degree for is for this sort of shit. To argue with people about their terrible politics, because I know the economics of it pretty fucking well, and it's just not feasible. People don't understand how the economy works. People don't understand how finances work, and that's not an accident. It's intentional that you're not taught that in school. That is a problem that I have with schools. Schools is an interesting one because I don't know. On the one hand, I do think that an education for the basics, reading, writing, math, I think people should know how to do that, and that is worth funding by school. What I get a problem with then is, well, schools start then having too much authority over what kids get fed. And so you've got a whole generation of dumb fucks who don't have any clue how money works, because the schools will never teach them about money or how to pay a bill or these important things to know in life. Instead, they'll start teaching them critical race theory and dumping propaganda down their heads. Start teaching them that Marxism is good. Yeah, no, I'll pass on that. I don't really know where the line is on that one. Healthcare, I absolutely do not support public health at all. I'm completely opposed to it, and here's why. And this is not an argument most people make, but I think that big pharma, big medicine, hospital, I mean, I think that the whole healthcare industry is so corrupt from top to bottom in every way, and so abusive, and of what they're supposed to do. You know, they're supposed to make, I don't think they don't make people healthier at all. If anything, I think they undermine health. You'll never learn about nutrition. I mean, think about it. Nutrition. This is food. This is your source of fuel. You're eating stuff constantly. You're constantly taking these things into your body so that your body can use them and how it works. They won't teach you shit about nutrition in medical school, and they won't bring it up ever at a doctor's appointment. What they'll do is they'll give you a poison pill because it gets them some money in their pockets. So yeah, they fuck up people's health, and they exploit financial systems, government systems. They exploit shit like this. They exploit shit like healthcare is a right. Everybody has a right to healthcare. Oh my God, healthcare is too expensive. We need public healthcare. Well, the same people who created this fucked up system that's way too expensive and are poisoning you instead of making you healthy, these are the same people that you think is so important that everybody should have a right to. And the only thing, healthcare is a right. The whole healthcare is a right mantra is not an organic thing, is a manufactured thing. Big Pharma wants everybody to demand healthcare be a right so that they can get unlimited government cheese. They created the problem. They created the huge, massive healthcare costs that we have here in the US, not because of any reason other than they could. Because they're established enough with government entities and in the minds of people that they can get away with shit and exploit their positions of power. What's the last step in that? Well, the last step would be public health. Once healthcare becomes a right, once your medical product becomes a right, and the government has to pay for it, which means the government is, once the government can force the public to give you money for your services, you're made, man. You're made in the shade. So no, the last thing on earth I'd want to do is give one of the most corrupt industries on the planet more power. I don't know if free will is real or not, and I, quite frankly, I find the debate obnoxious because it doesn't matter whether it's real, whether you have free will or you don't. You're not going to change the way you live. I mean, it has no bearing. It's just mental masturbation. I don't know about that. There's not a return on investment on higher education. What there is it's inflation. You put more of it in the economy, you put more of it into existence, and its value reduces. And that's all that giving everybody a free education does, is it deflates the value of a college education. And actually, if you start digging down the rabbit holes, you'll learn that a lot of these colleges have absolutely taken advantage of that and are completely corrupt and do all sorts of dirty research for corrupt reasons. I mean, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but these these colleges are not the pillars of society people think they are. They're kind of corrupt scum holes. What do you mean? I don't know. I guess I don't know the specifics well enough of other countries' healthcare systems to answer that. But I do think that globally, the medical industry is filthy and abusive. I don't know the specifics of how other countries implement their shit well enough. I mean, we've already got enough public health care that you're not going to die. If you have an emergency, you get taken care of. So what you don't get is you don't get follow-up visits and checkups and all that shit, which, you know what, I'm fine with. I don't. It's unfortunate that people have things happen in life. Nevertheless, the fact that bad things happen in life doesn't give somebody else the right to demand my money, and vice versa. Just because I had some bad luck, just because I've got the misfortune of having a tooth that needs pulled, for instance. I don't, but if I did, that doesn't give me the right to demand that you pay for it. Is it unfortunate? Yeah. Is it the result of any of my intentional actions? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's just genetically I got bad teeth. I don't know. Something fucked up. I bit a gobstopper on accident because I hit a bump in the road. You know, who knows? Who knows? Let's say it's none of my fault. That doesn't mean that it's other people's obligations. It's just one of those things. Sometimes bad things happen in life and they happen to good people through no fault of their own. That doesn't mean that somebody else is obligated to fix the problem for them. You got to live your own life, man. No, I don't support it in principle. I mean, hypothetically, I could foresee you can imagine a world where the healthcare industry is interested in giving people good health. We could have that conversation when we've got that system in place. But right now, no, I think that the healthcare industry is garbage, and I wouldn't want that for people at all. I don't agree with giving people something that actually harms them. And that's what I see the healthcare industry as. I don't know. I mean, I think it's the TI issue. It's certainly the TISE issue. I don't think I've ever met an ESTP who thinks we need more socialism. But yeah, more liberty. It's always more liberty in my mind, except for very rare circumstances. But we're so far from the point where we've got too much liberty that, I mean, it might as well not even be a possibility at this point. We're gonna go way further the other way. I mean, we don't live in a free society. We haven't for our whole fucking lives. We've just been too stupid and brainwashed to realize that land of the free doesn't really apply to us that much. We've got a massive incarceration rate, biggest on the planet by multiples. And most of those for nonviolent offenses, victimless crimes, things like addiction or parole violations. Where we end up, I mean, cumulatively, after you pay for your vehicle tags and your sales taxes and your income taxes, we already spend well over 50%. I think it's about 60% of the average American's income is taxes already. But you didn't know that, did you? That's not a free society. That's not capitalism. That's damn near socialism. What we do have is a culture, a mindset, and a formal government structure that believes in these ideals that we've let slip away from us. That's a hell of a lot, and that's not nothing. That's a hell of a lot more than most places have. Yes, free will is. I don't understand how. Oh no, I don't. I don't think. I don't think you're a slave to your cognitive functions. If that's what you're asking, if you're asking if my belief in freedom is just due to my slavery to being an ESTP, I don't think. No, I don't think so at all. I think that you can just see it objectively. I think it's the real truth. Sometimes we're just seeing real truths happens to be one of our strengths, I don't know. For sure. Yeah. My belief in free will and my belief in autonomy is way bigger than my belief in cognitive functions. Give me an example, because I'm apparently not answering the question you're asking, but I don't know how you could ask anything else. I'm not going to be on long, but I just dropped the live stream link. If Tekla, you want to like jump in and ask me that question, or if anybody else wants to jump in and ask questions for a second, you're welcome to. Like I said, I won't be on super long, but StreamYard it's the platform. It's the service that I use to do these live streams. I don't know that I have an age or I don't. What I think is worth funding for sure is people should be able to read. People should be able to do math. I think probably some life skills like how to pay bills, how to pay taxes. Just these things you need to know in life. I think that there is I would support certain fundamentals that you start losing me when you get to social sciences, when you get to more advanced things like trigonometry. Nobody needs calculus. I don't think that's a good use of my time. I took calculus in high school. I took calculus in college. Do I remember it? No, not a fucking bit at all. Have I ever used it? No, not a fucking bit at all. Did I hate it? Yeah. So, even math, I would curb a lot. I do think, and history is a tricky one because I do think history is important. The problem is I also think history is propaganda. So I really don't know where I stand on that one, because half of me is like, yes, it's important. And half of me is like, but it's all lies. I am mostly Telegram channels. I don't know if you've got the Telegram app or not, but there's some channels on Telegram that are probably my go-to red pill stuff. I'll surf around BitChute sometimes, and I'm following a pretty good group of people on Twitter too. But if you're looking for referrals to red pill shit, after I end this live stream, leave a comment, not a live chat comment, but a comment below the actual video, and say, beam me up to Telegram and download that app, and I'll get you some channels. Well, my bad for not like picking up on it. I'm kind of I'm brain tired. Yep. Oh, and on that note, fucking fluoride in the water, man. I mean, that's such an outrageous thing to do. Put fluoride in the drinking water of people, a drug that makes you dumb and compliant, and say it's for your teeth, to keep your teeth healthy. What the fuck ever? What kind of medicine? There's no other sort of medical procedure on earth where you would give somebody a drug, but with no quantity, with no dose distinction. You have no idea. There could be some little tiny 5-year-old kid who drinks a fuck ton of water because he's super thirsty, because he's running around all the time. He's getting way more fluoride than a huge fat old man who doesn't drink any water at all. It's just, but that makes no sense. So yeah, it's kind of like on the nose and in your face, the fluoride in the drinking water thing. I think, to me, like, you guys really are in the business of suppressing the population, aren't you? No, I wouldn't. If you mean from an administrative standpoint, yeah, no, not at all. And I don't believe in typing kids either. Actually, I plan on doing a video about this, because I know that typing your kids and using typology to help you parent your kids is it's something that people want. And I know that some unscrupulous motherfuckers like C.S. Joseph are starting to sell it. I'm sure nobody buys his retarded coaching. I hope nobody buys his retarded expensive parental coaching sessions. But I did see somewhere that he made like a private. He's made at least one video, like how to parent this type of kid. So he's starting to produce videos on that shit, and that's something I super don't agree with. Out of anybody, and much less him, but no, I don't believe in using typology or any sort of mental profiling system on kids. Certainly not in a structured, formal way. I think it would greatly interfere with natural development. And I mean, look at the typology community now. People can't type, largely. People are terrible at typing but think they're great. People don't understand it but think they do. People adults don't even really use it that well. They use fucking half the people use it in divisive, derogatory ways. I think if you hand that shit to kids and start imposing, if you give them that knowledge and say, you're this type, Timmy, they're that type, like, you're just helping weaponize this sort of tribal shit. And adults aren't competent enough to execute it. So no, I'm super opposed to using type for really anything more than adult an adult voluntary setting. No, you don't transition into any fucking thing. Let's see, what is a meme? C.S. Joseph is a meme, but I'm afraid his followers don't all see him as a meme. There's a lot of people I've talked to who he's got great SEO. His search engine optimization is phenomenal. So when you want to learn about typology and you search your type, you come up with C.S. Joseph videos. And if you don't know what you're listening to, he sounds smart. And so people buy this shit who don't know any better or who just have mushy brains and then end up getting themselves into some fuck shit. Oh yeah, they do. And also, particularly with MBTI, more so than socionics. But the way that the types are described is it's conducive. It promotes mistyping. Of course, there's if you look at the INFJ Facebook group, there's like, I don't remember the exact numbers. Pull up the INFJ Facebook group and pull up the MBTI Facebook group. There are like 4 times more people in the INFJ Facebook group than the MBTI one. There are way more INFJs claiming to be INFJs than any other type by a huge amount. Well, it's because everybody feels like it's what it reads. You're the most rare type. You're particularly insightful. That's why people don't understand you. And everybody goes, oh my God, I relate to that. I'm so smart. I'm so insightful. I don't feel understood. It's because I'm special and the rarest. What the fuck did you just do to people's, you know? You just undermine the ability of people to make rational decisions here by validating their feelings of yeah. And you've got Isabel Myers-Briggs really scummed up descriptions. And I sort of think it might have been intentional marketing because MBTI is a great marketing tool. But if you look at the way that the types are described, sensors are basically boring and dull, especially SI sensors. Intuitives are dynamic and big picture and creative. Just the descriptor words they use have a very different emotional resonance. And what you get is you get a lot of people coming out of MBTI typed as intuitives, like myself. I typed as an ENTP. I thought I was an ENTP for 2 years. And we all walked out of there feeling pretty good because we don't know that much about this system, but we do know that we are one of the rarer, more dynamic, more awesome types. We're an intuitive. So it's like everybody wins the special type by getting intuitive. So I sort of think it might have been marketing and intentional that she worded those things so differently. Bro, I hardly drink beer anymore. But I drank so much from the time I was 14 until the time I was like 27 that forget it. You'll never catch up to me. Nobody will ever catch up to me. I got a fake ID, a good one when I was 14. And I was an early developer, so I could pull it off at 14. And I've always had the ability to just act stupid confident when most people would be acting stupid. So at 14, I looked the part and I could act the part, no problem. I could buy booze anywhere. I could go, man, being 14 and going to your first strip club with a bottle of whiskey slid into your coat pocket, that's a happy 14-year-old. Yes. Yeah. It's okay. All of us buy some of it. You know, whatever, you know. Mm. Yep. And that is exactly the belief that comes out of the MBTI system. But like if you look at socionics, there's no the socionics types don't have that smart dumb. That's a mischaracterization of it. What it is mental play. I don't like to sit and speculate about stupid shit that doesn't matter. I don't like the free will question. Is free will real? I don't know. Who gives a fuck? You know, it has no bearing on anything. It's not even fun to think about, and you can't solve it. Stop asking me these stupid fucking questions. I don't want to debate God existing or not, because you can't win it. You can't logic your way into proving or disproving God. So there's no reason to ever argue with people about that. Yes. Go back and read Carl Jung's type description of NI, and then use that as your starting point. It's hard to understand, and it's hard to explain. There just isn't good vocabulary. There aren't good words for a lot of the perceiving processes in the English language. We kind of have, you know, but and I'm not gonna try to define it right now because I'm too brain tired, and I'll end up just fucking you up more. Read Carl Jung's description, and then read it again until you understand what he's saying. Once you understand what Carl Jung is saying about it, his NI description, then it'll be easier from there to look at other descriptions of NI and understand how they took Carl Jung's idea and then made tweaks or changes, or just described it differently. But start with Jung, understand Jung's description of it. I will tell you that C.S. Joseph's for sure is wrong. C.S. Joseph swaps the descriptions for NI and NE. So if you're referring to him, yeah, he's absolutely he's wrong as fuck. But that's just sort of a side note. I actually made a video about that, where he admits to swapping them. He admits that he went ahead and changed the definitions of NI and NE. He didn't bother to mention it, like during his videos about NI or NE. He just went ahead and did it. So there's a lot of people confused about that shit. Yeah. He was on some other shit. I don't know that I haven't done a thorough enough assessment of him and his work and his life to know whether I think he is brilliant or crazy or, you know, an angel or demon. But he's on some other shit, that's for sure. 7 sermons to the dead, huh? Damn, how do I get that open? Since I'm on the topic, if anybody hasn't seen the video about C.S. Joseph's N.I., that's it. The one I was talking about. All right. Yeah. Good looking at it. I'll read it. I am more open to sort of woo-woo occult-ish, religion-ish shit than I think a lot of people would expect. So I'm tolerant of it. I do think I don't intend to, not publicly, just because I think it's obnoxious behavior out of people to he's not this type, he's that type of video. I just think it's kind of petty and childish. So I'm not gonna go into depth. I do think he's an ENFP. I've told him that. He didn't he tried, he laughed at it, but it was like clearly an angry person trying to sound not angry. I didn't mean it insultingly. Like, I don't mean it insultingly. It's not an insult. It's an assessment. It's an insult if you're him, who he seems to have a particular grudge against ENFJs, ENFPs, which then is a whole nother level of sort of weird, like, what's going on there? Like, since I think he is the type that he's really down on the most, it's like, ooh, what's happening in your subconscious, man? There's some fucked up things swimming around in there. A little bit of self-loathing hiding around. Yeah, I don't know a lot about numerology, but the more I learn about it, like, I know just enough about it to think that there's probably some real shit there that I don't know about. Also, my life number, I'm an 11. My number in numerology is an 11, which is, I'm sure that is the first master number. So that's another reason to buy into numerology. One more cigarette, you motherfuckers. Then I'm going to bed. So something interesting about my channel is, if you look at my playlists, I don't have particularly organized playlist sections, but I do have playlists and kind of dump them in broadly. I've got one called like sexuality and relationships or something, and it doesn't have that many videos. I don't make that much content on sex and relationships, but that playlist consistently gets like 3 times the views, if I go into analytics, that any other playlist gets. So I'm coming to the conclusion that people want to know about sex, which of course makes sense. Makes all the sense in the world. would you guys believe, or maybe maybe you have an opinion of your own, but I guess what I'm not sure about is whether it's sex and relationships in the context of typology specifically that people would be interested in, or if it's just, hey dude, tell me how to get ass, like if I were to try to meet that demand and make more videos about sex and relationships, do you think that they should be type related or a little bit broader? So it's Chad knowledge. So Chadness, basically. That's I've got it. And actually I've sort of off screen privately, I've talked to people a lot about it. About making videos with Chad knowledge in it. Because people tell me to do it all the time, and I know that people want it. Here's the thing. I don't know how to not feel cringy doing it. I watch some of these ad channels and I'm like, oh God. I don't know. I'll get over myself, I guess, and share some Chad. Oh, now we've gotten it. All right. So we got one vote for just general Chadness and one vote for context. Rich Cooper, red pilled Chad videos. I don't know even what that is. I bet you I'm going to find out. First video, you have permission to act like Chad right now. Red pill mindset. All right, I'll check it out later. I'm kind of excited for it though. A/B testing. Oh, yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah, you're right. You're right. And I agree with that. The thing is that people's demand isn't really super reflective of what's reality useful. I think there's a lot of demand for relationship-based typology information because people who are inexperienced at the opposite sex are trying to figure out the system so that they can enter it without taking any risk, and that's just not how it works. You're missing the point. But nevertheless, for a lot of people, it's sort of a stall. I got to learn more. Before I can't talk to girls, I got to learn more. I'll play around with both. That is not a bad idea. I will. No, I'm not. Mostly my aim with my videos is just to fucking do what I want to do and talk about what I want to talk about. I'm obviously not, if I wanted to maximize views, I would centralize my theme more and I would make more frequent videos. It'd be much shorter and simpler. I understand that this method of topic jumping and random ass, short videos, long videos, just kind of all over the place is not the method for view maximization. A lot of what does. I mean, I think I agree. Just clarify that for me. How do you spot an ESTP hottie? Well, the ESTP versus TE. I mean, you can. I don't know, man. Let me think about the answer to that because it's just visceral for me. ESTPs do look very TE, especially in work settings. We have a hard time. We're either crass and rude, and our natural selves, or we're professional. We don't know how to be playful, and we don't know how to relax without relaxing all the way. So in professional settings, we tend to keep it professional. So if you're at work, then I'd say they will look very similar. An ESTP will look like a TE user. But if you're like at a bar or if you're out, they're going to be acting very different. Particularly if I think that an ENTJ has very different vibes from an ESTP. ESTJs and ESTPs start to look a lot more similar when they're fucking around and playing. But that question just boils down to type. Just get more familiar with the types, interact with people of the types. And for me, since maybe it's because I'm an SE Dom, but also I think this is even for everybody, it's important that if you can start finding these people in real life, there's you when you meet somebody in person and you feel their vibe and you look them in the eyes and you see their posture, and once you put everything together in person on somebody, it's so much different than interacting with them through Discord, or even through like YouTube or video chat. When it's wild. When I met Eric from Talking with Famous People the first time, I had no idea that motherfucker's like 6'5". But he was doing a road trip across the country. He pulled up in front of my house in his weird little hatchback, and then this like enormously tall man just unfolded out the door. I was like, wow, that's a big motherfucker. I don't know. There's just something different about it. I'm 6'1". I think that I'm probably about as big as people assume I am. But Pukoki is taller than you'd expect to. She looks small on camera, but she's pretty tall. And I'm not gonna snitch on the dudes who are short, but you get what I'm saying. Like in person, people just have. It's not all about height, but just different energies. You can feel somebody's energy. So once you spend some time, with ESTPs in person and with ESTJs in person, you can just sort of feel the different energy. Or see how they respond to being asked for help. Like I swear to God, if somebody asks an ESTP for help, like we'll help them to get it over with, right? We're gonna help you. You asked, and then we're done helping you. If you ask an ESTJ to help you with something, they're gonna motherfucking help you. They're gonna help you. You're gonna be so goddamn helped by the time they're done helping you that you'll know not to ask them again. Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. I will actually I will concede that point. I think that's a good point. I think that there are ways of knowing shit without that we shouldn't know, but still, nevertheless, I would consider it knowing. Fucking, what's it called? Remote viewing. Remote viewing is well established scientifically. They've done decades of research on it, like the CIA and stuff. Look it up if you don't know anything about what it is. But remote viewing is fucking fascinating. It's so well established in science that it's crazy. But it doesn't make any sense at all either. Also, look at how the way they dress. ESTP chicks, particularly more than ESTPs, tend to have a bit more style than ESTJs. ESTJs, they dress nice. They dress fine. But there's nothing that's gonna like jump out at you or catch your attention. You know, ESTPs are much more likely to have a little fucking like, oh, that. You know, you can't tell. You have to look really close to notice. But like, my earrings they're green and they're one of the second smallest. They're a small gauge. I don't remember what number it is, but on them in little black letters it says, it says "bitch chill." That's the sort of thing an ESTP will do that an ESTJ is never going to have earrings that say "bitch chill" on them. ESTP girls, generally that I know, tend to have a solid shoe game. Looking at you, Katie Bird. Yo. What comment? The link to the Books of the Dead thing. I haven't looked at it yet. I'm going to look at it later. Yeah, and there's a the gym rat ESTP stereotype is super hit or miss. Like, it's, for me, I worked out a lot regularly in about the last half of high school. No, yeah. The last half of high school and then all 4 years of college. I worked out very regularly. You know, like 3-4 times a week. Especially in college, because we had a great rec center. Once I graduated college and I didn't have access to that rec center anymore, I don't think I've lifted a weight since then. So I hardly looked any different. Like, I don't know. I didn't bulk up. I got stronger. I got more cut. But I didn't get a lot bigger. I also didn't take supplements or, you know, so a lot of the guys I'd work out with would sneak a little bit of roids on the side here and there, or for sure taking, you know, the handfuls of like whatever the fuck it is all these pills from GNC that are supposed to make you swole as fuck. I didn't take anything. I mean, that's too broad a question for a straight up answer. And it's going to depend on the situation and the person. And the answer is going to be pretty straightforward. Do they care about the person? Do they care about the person? And do they care about whatever the want is in that context? Like, if those two things align, then sure, they care, you know? Like, yesterday when we were at the store, Katie, my girlfriend, bought a mop. She had been wanting a mop for a minute. It's like, why the fuck didn't you say something? Like, of course we can get a fucking mop. You know, like, just get the mop. I don't know. I didn't. I wanted her to have what she wanted. It's, obviously, it's not because I didn't realize we didn't have a mop. You know, the floors would look clean to me. But it's things like that where I think ESTPs do want people to have what they want, especially if it's their people, and it's not an unreasonable thing. But like, I don't think we could give a fuck less what a stranger wants. That's cool. We all got things we want. Why? It's cool. Everybody who's 5'11" says they're 6. Just go ahead and do it. Oh yeah, they're helpful to a fault. Damn, you guys are commenting faster now. I better move my ass a little bit. I think that duality is legit, and I like it. I like the concept. I think it works well. Probably INFPs. I'm going to say INFPs there. It's a hard one, though. I think it depends on if it's a guy or a girl, too. I think ISFP. I think if it's a guy, ISFP. I think if it's a girl, INFP. I don't know. Pay attention to you'd think that, but pay attention to ISFP girls in particular. Most of them have sort of a put together look. It's not super flashy. It's like elegant, but not gaudy. They strike a good balance, and most of the time it's not attention getting-y or sort of try hardish. Well, fine. Apparently I'm being outvoted and everybody else thinks it's INFP. It does seem more forced. I agree. But INFPs do some weird, they get into some weird sort of dark shit, you know, like I do. Yes, it does feel more forced. They also seem more likely to like kind of have highs and lows, the pop, 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 and then when they hit the lows, they get kind of dark and aggressive in a weird way. Yes, I do. Um, yeah, and I actually have a book on it. I know enough about it to know generally what it is, and but I haven't gotten into it enough to know how to use it or how to teach it. I don't know. Give it a shot. What I meant by forced is it feels more forced because I think it's because INFPs are SE polar, and so when they can get like hostile or aggressive in an SE polar way. It just is weird to me, and it's probably just the perspective of my functions more than anything, but yeah, it's manifesting hostility with no SE. It's like, what is this? I know it's hostile, but it's not going anywhere. I don't know. If somebody called him out on it and made him feel awkward in public, then they'd care about that. For show, anytime. Mm. Well, a different time. Ask me about them. I can tell you about them. They're poorly represented in the type community. They're underrepresented and then poorly represented. The pro pick. Mike Byrne is the man, isn't he? And what type are you? Hmm. Okay, so this part, I, to the extent psychological reductionism is what it sounds like it should be, I like psychological reductionism. And to the extent I understand Gnostic spirituality, I like Gnostic spirituality. But when we get down here, I don't know what a modern variant of mystical pagan polytheism is. That sounds dramatic. Yep. I mean, if you let it be, anything can be a religion if you let it be. You ever seen grown men start crying when their football team loses? I mean, religion is a mind. Religion is an attitude that you bring to something. That is true. We will fuck that ass. No lube, but we'll spit on it first. Yeah, I've heard Christians whine about that. And he's a cult. Well, you know what? I guess it's not going to work with your beliefs then. I don't know what to tell you. Well, just a reminder, I do sell typings, screen to screen or video typings. There's links to that for more information in not this video yet, but most of my videos have links to either Snug, which is Lijo's platform she made, where you can schedule things there, or to True Religions, which is Damon's platform. You can schedule things there, or just email me. Which reminds me, I do have one. I have one that I need to finish up on. You did. Was it under this account? Thank you for reminding me. I all the fucking time I see questions and video comments, and I'm like, oh, this is a great topic. I'm gonna make a video on it, and then I forget about it. So feel free to drop comments and hit me up again. But I'm glad you told me. I'm gonna make myself a little reminder. A lot of people have a hard time assessing where their SE is because just insecurities. I mean, if you think about people's relationship to SE growing up, like going through high school and feeling like maybe I'm too fat, maybe I'm too skinny, maybe my tits are too small or my ears are too big. Like, it's just, that's a component of life. Maybe I'm, not good at sports, whatever. It's a component of life that people are like almost guaranteed to feel inadequate or inferior in, and have inaccurate assessments of themselves. So a lot of people like, oh well, SE Doms, like that's the quarterback and shit. You know what? There are SE Doms who ain't doing shit. Like, we can be a pretty fucking lazy people sometimes. And a lot of people have more competence with their SE than they're more competent with it than they are confident with it. They feel like they're completely fucking up with it. And I'm like, you're fine. Just stop thinking about it. If you stop worrying about it, you're fine. This is the truth. Mm-hmm. Your neat ass? Is it neat? You got a neat ass? I don't know. I'll be the judge of that. Women are welcome to email me ass pics. I accept that. It's an open offer. Standing. Dudes get blocked. Send me dude ass, you're blocked. Oh, thank you, guy. I don't know what you're talking about or referring to. Appreciate it. All right. Any last questions? Let's see. Oh yeah. Okay, I remember your comment now. Boy, isn't that a riddle of a comment? Yeah, I get behind on I check out comments and respond to them kind of in batches. So, whatever, like once a week or twice a week, however, whenever I'll just go from my oldest and start hitting back up chronologically the newest. And you kind of get the motion of, heart respond, whatever. You're dealing with short comments and you're kind of flying through them. And then boom, you hit this wall of a massive comment that makes you think and then makes you think about it's like, fuck. I got to respond to some other people before I start diving into writing this book. But no, it is an intriguing question. All right, bitches and hoes. I'm about to take off, and I see that John is reading us Jung. Fuck. Yes, but I don't. I think all mainstream religions are a blend of spiritual truth and misinterpretations and social control mixed in. And I don't think that there's a mainstream religion that has it right. I don't think you can say, well, Methodism is the all correct religion or Islam is the all correct religion. It's like, no, all these religions and major denominations have been so impacted and influenced by centuries and centuries of social and political influences that I would say that there is not a true major religion. Be good.